Heyo everybody, Haku here, and if you've been watching the channel over the past year, you know that with the Jump Week videos, I've been getting into a lot of Jump manga. Not just Jump, but also their digital publishing service, Jump Plus. Now, as we stand right now, I'm currently caught up to 11 out of the 20 mainline Jump series and 6 out of the 12, I think, Jump Plus series that are available in English. So with those 17 plus 6 more series that have ended over the course of the past year, I'm going to do my reviews of each of the manga that I've read in Jump, including Jump Plus, from 2021 from worst to best, or at least in my opinion, from worst to best. All 23 of these. Know that there are some exceptions, like I haven't caught up to Spy X Family, so that won't be up here, or Jujutsu Kaisen. I want to do So again, if you've been on the channel for a long time, I read the entirety of The Promised Neverland here on the channel from start to finish and reacted to all that. Same with Hero Academia until I caught up. I want to do that for Jujutsu Kaisen so I can share my reaction with all of you, so I'm not caught up to that one yet. Hopefully over the course of this year I can do that. I can catch up to the 9 mainline Jump series and the other 6 Jump Plus series that I'm not caught up to yet. So know that some prominent series won't be up here, but I've got about half of everything that's going on currently and my current thoughts on them. And I figured, you know what, might as well order it from my least to most favorite. But honestly, though I know anime fans can be kind of sweaty nerds sometimes, like, oh, this isn't up to my standards, this isn't good enough for me. Honestly, I think that Jump's lineup, not just including Jump Plus, but especially Jump Plus, it's a really good lineup right now. I think generally, basically everything's pretty great. There are going to be a few series, of course, that I'm just sort of meh on, and only one that I actively dislike, but just know that, yeah, it's my opinion, and not only is it my opinion, but it's also coming from the perspective of somebody who's reading this week to week, which is a lot different than just like me marathoning something and then making a review of it. Reading week to week is definitely way different. But yeah, also probably good to note that I'm only counting chapters from 2021, so if you see, like, say, One Piece kind of low down on this list, I think One Piece is one of the best manga of all time. Maybe this wasn't its best year, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Also, these reviews will be as spoiler-free as possible, because I'm not expecting all of you to have read, like, every single series in Jump. So if you want to use these as sort of guideposts for series you might want to check out or suggestions, then yeah, I'm gonna try to keep things as spoiler free as possible. Also, gonna try to shorten things as much as I can. You know, I'm just gonna be chill, just gonna be talking about each of these 23 series with all of you, but at the same time, if I talk much longer than like 2-3 minutes on each of them, we're gonna be here for over an hour, and that very may well be how things end up. So yeah, to not waste any more time, let's just start getting into things with my least favorite Jump series from 2021. Number 23, and my least favorite manga coming from Jump or Jump Plus from 2021, was The Elusive Samurai. It's the only series that I'm going to give a score below 5 to, and take my number scores that I'm giving all of these out of 10 with a grain of salt, because I just thought maybe that would help show that I'm really not down on the majority of these. I would rate most of these fairly highly, but I would give The Elusive Samurai 3 out of 10. It is just not very good to me. It's a historical series by the same mangaka who did Assassination Classroom, and it is very popular in Japan. Jump's been pushing it really hard, but it hasn't been doing very well overseas as compared to like how popular it is in Japan. But my biggest problem with it, and again, ever since it started, I've been reading it week to week, is that, you know how often people are like, you know, as a good writer, you should show the audience things rather than tell them. This does the exact opposite. It tells rather than shows. It is constantly like, this character is important because of this thing from history. This character goes on to do this thing, without actually showing us the characters develop or do anything in the actual story, without really even telling a story with them most of the time. It is basically just a history book, and it's just just not great. It doesn't tell much of a story. The characters in the story, like I mentioned, are pretty skimmed over. Like, it has small glimpses of being good because, again, I think the mangaka is very talented. It's not a huge knock on them or anything, but yeah, it has small glimpses of being good, but the overall design and the way it tells its story is just very, very flawed. I don't think I would ever like a story that's, again, basically just a history book skimming over everything. The art is alright. It can be good, but again, to me, it's usually not. It's usually pretty stiff and basic. The art here on the cover of the first volume that I'm using on screen is good, and there are some good, like, cover pages and stuff, but generally the art on the week to week is just very, very bare bones. Again, everything about it is just meh, and coupled with a story that's not even really a story, it's just a recap of historical events most of the time. It's just not very good. Also, the comedy lands sometimes. There have been some jokes that I thought were legitimately really funny, but most of the time it's just not. So again, the only series that I would say in this entire thing that I would give a sort of negative score to, a score below 5. But yeah, moving into the meh series now with number 22. 22nd is Protect Me Shugamaru, and as you can see from the graphic I'm using, it is new. It is very new. There's only been like 4 or 5 chapters, maybe 6 in 2021, so I don't have too much to judge it on. But it's a gag manga about an incompetent bodyguard, and it's very okay. It's really, really okay. It is not bad to me, but it's definitely not good either. I think the art is alright. I think it's the first known published manga by this mangaka, and they seem, from like the Jump author comments and stuff every week, they seem like a great person. So I'm happy for them getting something published in Jump, but I just don't know if this is it. Most of the jokes to me aren't very funny. There are a few there that really genuinely are. I love Tachizawa. I loved some of the Yu-Gi-Oh jokes they made were really funny. But yeah, most of them not that funny. It's just okay. It is really an okay manga. If it wasn't for where it is, I would think, oh yeah, that's an alright manga. But right now, Jump is so stacked with really good series that it sticks out for being just okay. Especially when there are already gag manga going on, like Me and Roboco. It just I don't know. It's just, oh, another gag manga, and it's not particularly impressive on top of that. It's just okay. Like I said, there's only been a few chapters, but I don't have a lot of high expectations out of it, sadly. But I wish the mangaka all the best because they seem really nice. But yeah, that's all I have to really say for it. It's a 5 out of 10. It's alright. Number 21 might be a surprise to some of you that have been watching my videos, because I really did like Neru as I was reading it, that it's all the way down in 21st place, but it really didn't ever get the chance to be great. That's a problem with a lot of, like, I mentioned Jump's lineup being great, but if there is one overall criticism I would have is that Jump has no patience anymore. They don't really let anything slowly, naturally build unless they really want to push it. Like I mentioned a million times in my videos, if One Piece started today, it wouldn't make it out of the Syrup Village arc. If Naruto started today, it wouldn't make it out of the Chunin exam arc, if it even made it to there. There's just no patience, and Neru's down so low because though it had some potential, it was a slow-burning story, and it never really got to go anywhere. So we ended at a place where I feel like a lot of the ideas weren't really fleshed out at all. The characters definitely weren't fleshed out at all. It was a martial arts school manga, and I would give it a 6 out of 10. Like I said, it was recently canned, so it is no longer ongoing. It's the mangaka's first full serialization here with Jump. I like that it had a really grounded, sort of realistic view of martial arts. I've seen so many manga where it's like crazy superpower martial arts, but no, this was just a really grounded approach to it. The story had a lot of potential, like I mentioned, but it just never really got the time to find its way. The characters were sadly bland. They just never really went anywhere. Much of the manga just, it needed spice. I think that's what it was missing compared to so many other things that sort of scored higher with me when I was taking all my notes over the past 4 days and making this video, is that Neru just didn't really have a lot of spice. It was fairly bland. I really did like the art. It felt very retro and throwback-ish, but in the end, the best I can do is a 6 out of 10, just because where there were others that I think, oh, that's such an egregious cancellation because it had this going on or it had that going on. Neru was a slow burn series, and though I really, really want to know where the series would have gone if it got to continue, it just didn't ever really get to sort of take off. Next up is Blue Box, a series that I'm also giving a 6 out of 10. It's fairly popular, so a lot of people that aren't familiar with my channel probably could be like, why is it this low? But it's a series that I do like, but I also like to criticize it because I have no idea what the mangaka's thinking, what they're doing with it. It's a very hit and miss badminton romance manga, again to stay spoiler free. It's by the mangaka who also did Aozora Rubber and Sensei Sukides. I don't know if both of those were in Jump or not, but I did write down for like some of the other works that the mangaka had worked on, if that helps anybody. But yeah, the pacing is slower than my channel growth. I usually don't complain about slow pacing or anything, but I feel like when I compare it to other series, even in this video, we're like 30 some chapters in and the characters and the story is barely developed whatsoever compared to how far so many other series can go in 30 chapters. Nothing feels significantly developed, really. The sports very questionably matter in Blue Box. I very often feel like the sports don't matter at all when I'm reading. We don't get to see them that often, and then sometimes they do matter, and sometimes they're treated as important. Like the premise kind of treats them as important, but a lot of times it's just so questionable. And the romance is basically completely undeveloped. The main romance has extremely little going on, again, compared to other romances going on that have done so much more in even less time. Hina is the only well-developed character. Hina is great. Chinatsu, the female lead, spends most of the series being a badminton trophy, and even now is really personality-less, really characterless, doesn't have much going on. Taiki, the male lead, is in his best with scenes with, again, his friend Hina, who is the most well-developed character. When he's in scenes with her, he's actually really pretty good. But aside from that, when we get into the badminton stuff, he's just sort of okay. And when we get into his stuff with Chinatsu, he comes off as creepy a lot of the times. He's just very, very, very unlikable in any of the stuff with Chinatsu. Which is sad because, like, here's the thing. He and Chinatsu seem like the main ship that the series is going for. They're on all the, like, all the promotional material, so I want the ship to work. That's like the main romance, but it's so undeveloped. And like when they're together, she's basically a personality-less badminton trophy, and he's really, really unlikable. So I just don't really get it. Also, I described Taiki in my little like bullet point notes here as very inhuman, and I think what I mean by that is there are so many situations where I'm like, what human being acts like this? Where he is just like, it's not a matter of being socially awkward. He's just really inhumanly weird. It's like he doesn't just talk to people like they're people. Also, the manga, and again, it has this strange toxic relationships with sports and self-worth, where a lot of the characters will tie their self-worth and their being into how good they are at sports, and, oh, I'm only good enough as a person to do this or to be with this person if I'm this good at sports. And I'm like, ordinarily a series would, like, sort of show that as a flaw, and the author would be like, oh yeah, this is one of the character flaws. They need to learn to find their self-worth. But I feel like sometimes Blue Box reinforces that idea, and I'm like, that's a really, really shitty worldview to be like, oh, the characters are only worth their ability at sports. So again, it's got a really weird toxic relationship. I think the art does a great job in terms of conveying emotion just through facial expressions, but aside from that, most of the time it's kind of below average as far as what's in Jump right now. Like, it started off, to me, I thought the art was fairly weak, but I think as the story has gone on, it's just gotten better and better. But even then, it's still, compared to the rest of the current Jump lineup, it is just fairly below average. So yeah, this is a really popular one. I feel like this is probably the series the most people are going to disagree with me on. But yeah, like I said, so much is just entirely undeveloped or not developed very well. There's this weird toxic relationship with self-worth going on. Hina is the only good and developed character. Taiki is unlikable half the time, and Chinatsu spends at least half the series being a personalityless badminton trophy. So it is not great. It's popular, but I will admit that maybe I'm just not seeing it. Maybe I just don't get it. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's popular, but I think it's one of the weakest things in the entire Jump lineup. So whatever's going on that other people see that I don't, maybe I'm just not getting it. In 19th, we have another romance with Even If You Slip My Mouth, which I'll also give, I don't know whether to give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10, because I do definitely think that it's more developed and has told more of a story than Blue Box has, but at the same time, it's like, it hasn't really gripped me yet. It's only been going on for like a dozen or so chapters that have been translated into English, and it's just a cute romance about a human and the Kuchisaki Onna, or the slit-mouthed woman. And yeah, it's done by the mangaka who did 25G no Ghost Rider, which wasn't in Jump. And I think the female lead is adorable. I love Miroku-san so much. I love the world and the characters, and I think it has a lot of potential in that sense. The romance to me is cute, but I feel like there is the occasional time when I'm reading when the male lead can be boring a lot of the time and can be off-putting a lot of the time, like going a bit too far that I'm like, okay, this is getting a little creepy for me. But I think generally it's pretty good. The art and the character design I really, really like. I think they're really nice. Again, aside from the male lead, I feel like his character design is really bland and boring to the point where I often can't tell him apart from other characters. Like, there's a side character that comes in around 7 or 8 chapters in, and it's difficult for me to tell them and the main character apart just because the main character is so generic looking. But yeah, I think that everything is good. I think it's not the best series to me going on right now because, again, the lineup is so stacked, but I could see others really, really connecting with it, and I could see it just continuing to get better and better because, like, where it is, like I said, it's good. It's just not really the best. In 18th place is Diamond in the Rough, and it is a stone-themed action fantasy. It's the first known manga by this mangaka that I could find any record on. But it's a series that's also, I don't think all of the chapters have been officially released in English yet, but I'm just going on what's been officially released in English. That's what I've read. I think the world is really, really, really cool and sort of immediately hooked me. And I think it has tons of potential that makes me want more. I feel like the mangaka isn't really afraid to take risks with it, which is nice. The characters are really fun too. I do sometimes feel like the story is like moving really, really fast though. I feel like the story just blows through things. And it could maybe stand to slow down a bit. I do think the action is good too, but this is gonna sound funny. I feel like I need this to get an anime for me to fully understand how the powers work. Because like sometimes I'm like watching these fights and I'm like, yeah, the action's pretty good, but I'll admit I'm having a little bit of trouble entirely understanding like the physics and momentum of how everything works with these powers and everything. And I feel like an anime, just seeing it visually like that in motion would kind of help me with that. But just reading, I guess that is one negative I could levy towards it, is that, yeah, sometimes I'm like, okay, the action's nice and all, but I have trouble following it sometimes. Um, but yeah, the designs are great. I love the designs of the Stone Eaters. And the art is usually very good. So yeah, everything about it's very good, but there are a few questionable decisions, and the pacing is questionable, but yeah, generally, I just like everything about it so far. I need to see where it goes from here, and as a score I forgot to mention, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. In 17th, we have PPP that I'm also giving a 7 out of 10. Now, I'm going to argue that I think this one's underrated, but I also feel like this one's kind of been catching on lately. So it is a musical piano manga, and it's the first full serialization from the mangaka I could find. It's good. It's really good. I do think it's an acquired taste though. Like again, you're reading the manga without musical accompaniment, though I think there have been releases like on YouTube or something with the proper piano accompaniment to it. But yeah, the story is nice. It's tear-jerking. Sometimes it feels a little bit hard to follow, like we're throwing in a bunch of characters and they all look really similar, so they're kind of hard to tell apart. I like the premise of it. I like the characters. I hope that it doesn't get canceled too early, that it gets the time it needs to tell the story it's trying to tell. I think the characters are really as solid as they can be for the few chapters we've got so far. Again, only maybe a dozen-ish chapters. And for me, I will say the biggest barrier to entry for any of you thinking about checking it out is probably going to be the art style. The art style is absolutely an acquired taste. It is more stylized and cartoonish. I would compare it more to like, I don't know, old Digimon art style or like Shaman King art style. It's not the traditional, same old, more, I don't want to say realistic, but that sort of more standardized manga art style that you come to expect. It's a little bit more cartoony. Um, but yeah, I think it's a very good manga. It's a little weird, so there is a little bit of a barrier to entry, but I could see it blowing up and getting really big. I could see Jump not giving it the time it needs and it gets canceled in a few more chapters. Who knows where it'll go from here, but I do think it is it's a solid manga. In 16th place for me is another canceled one, and that's going to be ITLC. This might be another one like I mentioned with Blue Box, people disagreeing with me on. People really didn't like ITLC very much. I liked it though. I thought it was really fun. You can see me read through the entirety of it in the Jump Week videos. I genuinely liked it. It was all over the place. It was weird. It was messy, but it was fun. I loved the characters. It's a series about a crazy detective waifu, basically. It's the third series that the mangaka has done in Jump after Invade You and Bunkiten. Is that right? So yeah, it's the third serialization they've had. It was wild and unpredictable. It was all over the place. It was messy, but I loved it. I was willing to be patient with it and to see where it went. There was constantly like, oh, this is what the series is going to be. Then they swerved you and it's like, oh, this is what it's going to be? Swerve you again. It was an interesting read. But really, I loved the characters. Just Aoi alone was such a great character. I could have read this weekly for however long it went on, just for Aoi. It was just messy fun. I thought the art and the style that it had. Even I love this this volume cover I'm using here. I loved the art. I loved the style it had. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 just because, yeah, it ended, and at the time it ended, it was messy and all over the place. But I thought it was really creative. I enjoyed it a lot, but I feel like a lot of people are going to push back on me with this one because it wasn't that well liked. Continuing with the cancelled manga, in 15th place is going to be Nine Dragons Ball Parade, another series that I always made jokes when I started my Jump Week video, when I started catching up to as many Jump series as possible. I was like, no one reads Nine Dragons Ball Parade. That was like my thesis statement. And then I read it and I was like, wow, this is good. It's a shame that no one reads Nine Dragons Ball Parade. It was a good baseball manga. It never really got a full chance to get where it was going. It was the first sort of manga for the story author, which was Mikiyasu Kamada, and the artist Ashibi Fukui had worked outside of Jump on Ri Sukaban Dekka, Slime and Dragons, Shinobi no Kuni Anthology Ban, Makoto no Oja, and Anonatsu 1959. So they had a lot of manga outside of Jump under their belt already. So yeah, to be fair, nobody read Nine Dragons Ball Parade, but I did, and I loved it. I loved the story. The first arc that it had going on, where it was sort of building the team one by one and introducing us to these characters, I loved it. I loved the characters. I thought it was such a fun story. And then, again, trying to be spoiler free, but we hit the point where you knew the writing was on the wall and they had to be like, okay, we have to end this in like 3 chapters. So they have to rush through the ending bits. I loved the characters. Karin and Tsubaki were my favorite characters. They were the best. But yeah, it's only getting a 7 out of 10 because, again, the art was great, but the art was great, the story was great, the characters were great, but they had to rush it. They had to rush the last quarter or so. And again, I can't give it a hugely high score because it's not like, it wasn't game-changing. It wasn't something that like, oh, it's such an egregious cancellation because it was doing so well. Nobody was reading it, but I liked it. It has a place in my heart, enough to earn the 15th spot for 2021 for me. In 14th place, we have yet another manga that didn't survive 2021, and that's Candy Flurry. It's another one that I actually really loved. I read all of it when I did the Jump Week videos. It's My Whole Cake Academia, so given the sort of candy or sweets theme that it had, the sort of way that it was very similar to something like My Hero Academia, but not as serious in tone, I feel like it was always sort of doomed to not be the most popular, but it was good, it was fun, it could have been so much more. The author was new, but the artist did a one-shot for Jump titled Seiken no Yusha no Goe. The story for this was good. Again, it wasn't serious enough, I think, to grab current fans. The world was probably always going to end up flawed. The characters were great, though. The characters were so great, especially Irie. Irie was a hilarious character, and the series' strength was its dialogue. I don't think anything else going on in Jump had dialogue, back and forth speech that was this good. It was so well written, so creative, so funny. It was just really, really hilarious in its wordplay. The main character was great for this. Misaki was your kind of straight-laced character that you end up with in these series, but even that was able to be played for laughs. But Irie, as a hyper-incompetent yet hyper-competent character, was so good. And sometimes you'll see, like, a good sort of character concept, but it's by, like, you know, an author that's alright, and they can't bring out the full potential of that. But you get such sharp dialogue writing and compare it with such a brilliant character concept as Irie, and there was magic there. Irie was such a great character. So it is a shame. It is a shame that we didn't get to see where it was going, but yeah, the art, since I'm mentioning that for all of them, it was really great. Overall, series was just super underrated. 7 out of 10. In 13th place is going to be my first 8 out of 10, and that's going to be the Hunters Guild Red Hood. And before anyone else says it, potential. That is what this is all about. It was a ridiculous cancellation because of how good it had gotten. So the mangaka had done a Jump one-shot, Yadokari no Kuni, or Yadokani no Kuni, and Kirahoshi no Meryl as well. But yeah, other than those one-shots, this was the first full serialization, and it was excellent. It was an excellent manga with potential to be huge, but it's only an 8 out of 10 because it never just got pushed by Jump. The views were great on Manga Plus. Like, as far as overseas audiences go, Red Hood was doing pretty well, but it was never pushed in Japan. It never did well in Japan, and that's a real shame. Because, like, the first few chapters, I will admit, it's not the highest on this list, because the first few chapters were just alright. But then after we got through those first few alright chapters, we got into a test arc, and that test arc was excellent. The test arc was so good, had so much potential, like, developed these incredibly good characters, and just made me so ready to see where it was going to go. And then we got a rushed ending. The art was also very, very good and very unique. So, yeah, it was an incredibly good series, but, you know, fuck Jump for this one. Now, my next two series are actually both going to be manga that just started in Jump. They each have less than 10 chapters out as of the end of 2021, and I really think both of them have even more potential than Red Hood had. But because it's been less than 10 chapters, we know Jump has no patience. Who knows where they could be going, despite them having potential. I couldn't really give them more than an 8 out of 10, because I think they're both excellent so far, but again, less than 10 chapters each, not a lot to judge with, and kind of wanted to keep them out of the top 10 because of that. So, yeah, getting into number 12, first off, is Ayashimon. I love Ayashimon so far. I think it's really, really been great in these first few chapters. I love the world and the setting. It's a bit of a sort of supernatural Yakuza battle shonen. Let's see, what else has the mangaka done? They did a one-shot Prison Princess, Phantasma, and Jigokuraku. Yeah, they did Jigokuraku, which I think is getting an anime this year. I really want to go and read that. But yeah, it has extremely high potential. I love the characters so far. There's so much room in this series for world building. Like, I could just see so much incredible potential there. The art is excellent. I love the designs. I love the way the art looks. I'm just really, really, really excited for this one. But yeah, again, I'm really, really excited for this one, but there's been like less than 10 chapters. 11th is the very fun to say Doron Dororon. And it's another 8 out of 10. Again, it just started, has incredibly high potential. It's about the Stray Leak Samurai Yokai Slayers. It's really, really, really fun. The manga did a one-shot called Fantasies and another manga called Gollum Hearts. I don't know if they were with Jump or not. I didn't write it down. But, yeah, I think that it's been getting a little bit less hype than Ayashimon has. But personally, I kind of prefer it. I'm liking it more so far. I think the main characters, Dora and Kusanagi, are really great. They're what has really, really hooked me. I love them, especially Kusanagi, and its design is so good. I really, really love everything so far, but again, I don't want to judge too much given that we're only a few chapters in. The art is very good too. I love the art style, and the flame effects that they use are like incredibly good. So again, another series that I have nothing but positive things to say about, but we'll have to see where it goes. Getting into the top 10, I'm actually going to give an 8 out of 10 to Ayakashi Triangle. It's a gender bend, ecchi comedy, romance, action. It has a little bit of everything going on. It's a real jack of all trades. It's by the mangaka who did Black Cat, To Love Ru, and even more, so they have some pretty famous manga in their past, and I really, really like it. Now, I will say that, again, it's an ecchi series, so if you think that, like, fictional characters are real, maybe Blue's Clues is more your speed, but I think it's a mostly really nice series. I think it's not the best overall. It's like, what is it? It's like a jack of all trades, master of none, but the comedy is really good. The romance is really good. And even the action is like, I keep saying as I'm reading it, the action is better than it has any right to be. It's really good. I will say the only criticism I have for it is, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's a gender bend series. So at the very beginning of the series, the main character is a guy who becomes transformed into a girl. And the only criticism I actually have is that I've spent all series with Femme Matsuri, the female version, and I've grown all series to like this character. This is the character that's been developed all series. I don't really have any stake in them turning back to a guy. I don't have any like fond memories of them as a guy or anything. I don't have any reason to want them to change back. Like, I don't know. I'm sort of like kind of attached to the female version of Matsuri, at least outwardly female. But yeah, it's a really, really fun story. The art's very, very good. One thing that's interesting, I wouldn't really call it a positive or a negative, maybe it's a positive, is where, like, I'll compare it to something like One Piece has like many, many panels on every page, and even when they do a big 2-page spread, there's usually like panels to the side or top or bottom. This has just tons of panels that span almost the entirety of the page, like tons of massive, huge panels, really showing off the art. Again, some of it's, like a lot of it, maybe even most of it, isn't even ecchi stuff. It's just good. It looks good. It has a nice style to it. The chapters are kind of short and breezy. It means that we don't get a ton of development every single chapter. The pacing's a little slow, but I don't really mind it. It's just one of those things. I'm reading week to week, and it's a nice breezy read every week. So yeah, I think Ayakashi Triangle is actually very good. I like that it's really above average at every little aspect of it when it comes to like the action and the comedy and the romance and the ecchi. Everything I think is above average. It's not the best at any of those single things, but the fact that it can do romance better than some of the romance series, or comedy better than some of the strictly comedy series, like, it's just good. It's just a good manga. It's probably underrated because, again, I feel like ecchi really isn't as big as it once was as a genre. My ninth favorite manga from 2021 was Don't Blush Sekime-san. It is an absolutely adorable, just the cutest middle school romance. Now, the mangaka also did a manga not in Jump that was Rental Kanojo Tsukita-san. But yeah, like I said, it's just adorable. It is the absolute cutest. The characters are just so cute. Like, there's none of the cheesy waiting for the characters. Like, in so many romance, it's like the entire story is just waiting for the characters to admit they like each other. Nah, we just jump straight into the relationship. I will tell you, this manga isn't about the characters falling in love, it's about the relationship. Like, basically chapter 1 or 2, they're together, and it's about seeing their relationship grow, and it is adorable. I hate using the term realistic. I really hate using the term realistic, but the way that the characters act, the way they interact with each other and with the world, just feels so natural. That's the best thing about it. Like, whenever there's a situation, I'm like, even if I wasn't in that exact situation, I feel like the little middle school me way back in my memories is like, oh yeah, it feels so familiar and nostalgic. Because it just feels so grounded and so natural. The chapters are very short, I'll add, and it's bi-weekly, so only a chapter every 2 weeks. The art is simple, but it's just, there's a great cover color page every single chapter. But yeah, it's very short. It only takes like 3 minutes to read usually for me. It's very short, but it's just so cute. It's just so good. And you know, short or long doesn't mean good or bad when it comes to your weekly chapters, as you're about to see with, I think, what comes next in my lineup. Or no, the thing after what comes next in my lineup. But yeah, I don't mind the chapters being very short, just because every time there's a new chapter out, I know I'm in for some really, really cute content. In 8th place is Ghost Reaper Girl with yet another 8 out of 10. It is a manga that's going to be more than you expect. I will say, read more than the first chapter or two. Because with the first chapter or two, I was like, what is this we have Soul Eater at home stuff? But then I kept reading, and I just really came to love this one a lot. Now, the main character has done Kiruto and Ogiri for Jump, but most famously they did Rosario to Vampire. So they have some things under their belt, and the mangaka is great, by the way. They interact and talk a lot about Ghost Reaper Girl with fans in English on Twitter. They're really, really great. But yeah, it is an action supernatural shonen with a 28-year-old protagonist, which, again, I think is really cool. I feel like there are more manga that are like that these days, but it's cool having a 28-year-old female lead. I really, really like that. It also feels like it's this mix in inspirations between like Lovecraft, magical girl elements, and like a Soul Eater style shonen. It's just really, really good. I really like the story a lot. I love the characters so much. There's tons of potential in the world too. I feel like the world building has potential to be great. It's been great so far. Now, sadly, I hope the mangaka gets well soon because it has been on hiatus for a little bit over a month as of the end of 2021. It's also bi-weekly, so only a chapter every other week. The art is excellent, and again, everything about it's excellent. I love Ghost Reaper Girl. I will give you a warning. It is read left to right instead of the usual manga right to left. So you gotta remember, flip your brain around, read left to right for this one. In 7th place is another 8 out of 10 series, and it's going to be Witch Watch. I think people probably sleep on Witch Watch, but it's really good. The mangaka is the one who did Sket Dance and Kanata no Astra, so again, good series in the past. But yeah, it's a magic slice of life with really, really strong characters. The series' strength is in its characters. It's like, you know how sometimes you read something or you watch something and you just fall in love with the characters, and that's really what every little aspect is based around. That's what this is. It's all about getting you to really fall in love with these characters, and like the comedy is based on the characters and who they are and how they react to stuff or interact with things. But it doesn't just do the slice of life comedy well. It takes on some serious stories, some really sad stories sometimes, and makes them really good too. It feels very modern too, which is really cool. It feels very modern in a way that so many other series I feel like don't to me. But what it does is it spends time on this slice of life stuff, and you just get used to the chapter to chapter building of these characters and the jokes that you get to see with the situations they're in. And then it just gives us a great arc that ties together all these things we learned in the slice of life stuff. And it's just so good. I will say, to you, this may or may not be a negative. It's very wordy. It takes me like 12 to 15 minutes to read the chapters a lot of the times. It's very wordy. But the slice of life content it gives is great. And where it really shined and where it really earned a spot this high up to me this year was with the Dogs and Raindrops arc. Again, an arc that it just brings together all these things we learned in the slice of life stuff and tells such a great story with the characters that we've come to love. And we left the year off with the start of a new arc. So again, starting an arc after being in slice of life stuff again for a while. Like, I'm a huge fan of the setting. It's a setting that takes things like witches and sort of, they're kind of multicultural and like sort of Eastern elements like Oni and Tengu, and marries them with sort of Western elements like vampires and werewolves, and it puts them all in a modern setting. And I'm a sucker for that whole sort of mythical creatures in a modern setting, or sort of like knights and magic and stuff, but in a modern setting. I'm like a big fan of that type of thing. So yeah, it's really, really good. The serious moments are so great. It's definitely had me tearing up before. The art is funny. The art when used with the comedy is really good, and it's very solid just in general. The action shots or just character shots are very well done. It's just really good all around. I think it's something that people kind of sleep on, but I think it's one of those things where you have to enjoy you have to come into it for the slice of life and for the characters, because that's what you're going to get most of the time. But then where it really shines is after you've enjoyed the slice of life and the characters, they're just going to give you a killer arc like the Dogs and Raindrops one this year. So yeah, excellent series. Definitely earned the 7th place slot for me. 6th place is going to piss some people off because I'm putting One Piece here. And don't get me wrong, I got One Piece figures behind me. I'm a big One Piece fanboy, but 2021 was not the story's best year. I mean, when it comes to its popularity, it did very well. When it comes to like things that we got introduced to and like celebrations for the thousandth chapter and episode and everything, it was really good in that sense, but, you know, it just wasn't great story-wise this year. We spent a lot of time, again, being spoiler-free as possible, but it's One Piece. We just spent the year spinning wheels in Wano, basically. It was not great. And I have talked about Wano fatigue before, and I'm definitely feeling Wano fatigue, but it's not just that, because I felt Dressrosa fatigue, so many people did. But the thing with Dressrosa was, people were feeling fatigued at the end, the pacing wasn't the best, but the story of Dressrosa was still really good. Now we're running into those same problems again. The pacing this year, not great. And not only was the pacing not great, but we ran into the issue of Oda having a lot of breaks this year. Which I'm fine with him having a lot of breaks, but the pacing wasn't great. Again, we've been in this arc for entirely too long. Wano could have been written, like what's been written so far could have been written in like a third or at least a half of the amount of chapters that we've been sitting through. There were so many things that just ended up not meaning anything. We've wasted a lot of time. And we had this problem in mainland Wano where it just felt like we would jump to this character, they'd be like, this is what we did off screen, or we'd see the very end of something, we'd jump to another character, this is what we did off screen, and we just keep doing that, and we don't actually ever get to see any of the story beats. And when we started with the Onigashima raid, I thought, oh wow, this is good. We are getting out of the problems of mainland Wano. Over the course of 2021, we got back into those problems. I feel like there has not been, for it to have been a year, there has not been enough progress at all. It's possibly One Piece's lowest point this arc for me. And this was a year where I rewatched all of One Piece. I was super, super hyped about One Piece this year, but Wano's just not great. Wano just has a lot of problems. And again, I don't want to get too spoilery, so I won't go into it too deeply. Maybe I can do a whole One Piece discussion. But yeah, this was just not One Piece's best year, sadly. So hopefully things can get better, but yeah, Wano to me is probably, or at least possibly, the entire series' low point. Sorry for the odd cut there, but my camera was dying on me. In the 5th place, moving into the top 5, we have Sakamoto Days, which had a really, 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 really excellent 2021 in terms of its popularity just growing and people really, really starting to tune in for Sakamoto Days. I feel like for this, an anime announcement is like inevitable. It's a really incredible action series. So the mangaka has done a few one-shots for Jump in the past, from Locker Room to Garaku to Sakamoto. And with this, the characters are good. The powers are kind of questionable, but like the logic behind some of it isn't super tight, but that's not really what the series is about. The overall story is great, but what the series is really about is just the action, just the fighting. That is all it's about, really. The story, the characters are all meant to serve the action. And the action, the fight choreography, the creativity is possibly the best I've ever seen. I don't know, I can't think of any other manga really where both the action is so tightly woven together and creative and unique, and yeah, just also so creative and unique and different. The mangaka, real visionary for creative fights. It's really, really, really good. Also, the art is great. So, yeah, it had an insane year in terms of both the quality of what it put out, plus its popularity starting to catch on. So, yeah, starting out our top 5 with Sakamoto Days. And for 4th place, it's time to get a little bit heated. It is the highest ranked series up here that's been cancelled, so Phantom Seer, no longer ongoing. But Phantom Seer is Jump's most egregious cancellation to me. And I will preface this kind of at the beginning to say that, like, of course, I'm an outsider. I don't know if there was problems with communication with the mangaka. I don't know all of what went on behind the scenes. But as a reader, as a fan, it is the most egregious cancellation. I started getting into more Jump stuff besides just like Hero Academia and One Piece because of Phantom Seer. It inspired me to see what else Jump had going on. It inspired me to start doing the Jump Week videos and sharing my journey with all of you as I read all of this. It was so good. And talking about other series having potential, to me, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this could absolutely eclipse what Black Clover's done. It could be up there with the Hero Academia or Bleach in terms of popularity. Like, it had so much going on for it already, so much success that it was getting in such a short amount of time. And also just so much potential to just keep getting better and better, because as it went on, it just kept getting better and better. So yeah, it's Jump's most egregious cancellation, giving it a 9 out of 10. It is the first manga serialized for the story writer, Togo Goto, but the second for the artist, Kento Matsura, who also did Tokyo Shinobi Squad and Jump. But it won the, the Gold Future Cup, just like Red Hood had in the past, so I mean, a lot of good that does. The sales were insanely good. For a new manga from a new mangaka, the sales for the first few volumes were really, 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 really great. So again, it's really confusing why it got canned again. Like I said, we don't know all of what goes on behind the scenes, but the story was great, especially compared to, like, you know, the vast majority of everything else in Jump. And like I've been saying, Jump has a really great lineup, but even then, Phantom Seer was a standout. The popularity was doing well, the sales were doing well, so I really don't quite get why this was canned. The story and characters were great, and they only kept getting better. They just kept getting better as it went on. The art and designs were incredible. I loved the style it had going on. So yeah, it's a bit of an understatement to say so much wasted potential. It's just honestly a confusing one that almost a year later still has me heated with, like, why on earth would Jump axe Phantom Seer? It just baffles me, considering, like, okay, I can kind of get Red Hood. Red Hood had and I can definitely get Neru. Neru had potential, but I can get it. Red Hood was doing well overseas, but I get it not being pushed as much or doing as well domestically in Japan. I get that, and I get that the first few chapters of Red Hood weren't really super gripping. It took until it got into the test arc for Red Hood to get really, really good. But Phantom Seer was being successful, and it was good. So it's just such a baffling one to me. But I wanted to put it all the way up in 4th place, because even though, of course, they just had to end it out of nowhere because it got canceled, what was there when we had it was just excellent. It didn't even go throughout the entire year of 2021, but yet it was just one of the best things to read before it just got randomly canceled out of nowhere. In 3rd place, starting out our top 3, is Excuse Me Dentist, It's Touching Me, and I really feel like everyone needs to do themselves a favor and read Excuse Me Dentist, It's Touching Me, just because it is so good. I will mention also that it is another bi-weekly Jump Plus series, so it only comes out once every 2 weeks, but it is the strongest rom-com. It's so funny. Like, it's a rom-com with a lot of the emphasis on the comedy, but the comedy is just probably the funniest in all of Jump right now. It's definitely up there. It's so, yeah, I would actually go ahead and make the statement, it's the funniest comedy in Jump right now. It's so good. It plays off of every single character kind of being insane. Like, one thing that's great about the comedy with this, it feels like every single character, every single bit of the world this is set in, it's kind of like a normal world, but at the same time, everyone is just weird. Everyone is just so insane. Every little thing is just so off-kilter that it's like a real trip to read through. The characters are all brilliant. I love, again, every single one of their comedy gimmicks. All of them are funny. All of them are really, really endearing. Just absolutely incredible. I think that the series can do both well. I've been talking up the comedy, but not only does it do well at the comedy, it does really well in its serious moments too. The serious scenes are also very good. I'd also say that the romance is very good. The romance might also be the best in Jump/Jump Plus right now. I'm trying to think if there's any romance that I like more. I think it definitely, like, 1000% eclipses the romance in Blue Box. I think that the romance in Ayakashi Triangle is very good, but I think it beats that even. And even saying that's very good, it's good. It's a real jack of all trades, Ayakashi Triangle. But Excuse Me, Dennis, It's Touching Me might be the best comedy and the best romance going on right now. Both are very, very good. It's a really fun read. Tomori is just best character of questionable gender. I absolutely love Tomori. And Tomori is almost sort of the sort of grounding force in Japanese comedy, kind of the straight man character, in the sense that, and it's weird calling Tomori that, but just in the sense that Tomori's probably, weirdly enough, one of the least insane characters. The art also is excellent. I love the style that the mangaka has going on. Yeah, it's a 10 out of 10. All three of the top three, I'm going to say, had 10 out of 10 2021s. Excuse Me, Dennis, It's Touching Me has been going on since 2020, I think, but again, the 2021 content was all just so excellent. It is, again, chapter only once every 2 weeks, but whenever we get a new chapter, it's always funny. It's always really endearing. It's just really, really good. The second best manga that Jump and Jump Plus had going on this year was My Hero Academia. I think a lot of, like, sweaty contrarians that want to hate on whatever's popular might get upset at that, but it just had a really good year. Like, even people that I follow or people that I watch that usually aren't big into My Hero Academia were talking it up through most of 2021, even if it's not usually their thing. It just had a really good year. And not only that, for me, I think it's a great manga. So to me, great manga that had a great year. Yeah, you can't really ask for much more than that. I feel like compared to One Piece was still rated highly. I still put it at 6, but like One Piece is a insanely great manga that had kind of a rough year. Hero Academia just had a great year on top of being baseline great. So yeah, I'm just going to assume here, like, I'm not going to give spoilers, obviously, but at the same time, I'm not going to, like, talk about Horikoshi or the basic premise of the story. I'm going to assume that everybody has a general idea, even if they don't read. So yeah, I feel like this year we finished off a really excellent arc, one of what seems like, it's not my favorite arc, but what a lot of people think is one of the best arcs in the series. So again, even though it wasn't my favorite, I can respect that, and it was excellent. We finished out that arc, and we followed it with even more great content that, again, I'm trying not to, like, give too much of a description and spoil. Not every single individual chapter was the best, but overall, the progress the story made and everything that happened, I think, added up to be a really great year. On top of that, there was a lot of really, really excellent character work. I feel like that was one of the big stories for Hero Academia coming out of this year, is just how well the characters were handled. And I feel like another big thing is, like, there have kind of been two reveals that people have been waiting for the answers for and waiting for the answers for like the entire series. And we got one of those at the end of last year, and we spent a lot of the early parts of this year still going through, like, the aftermath of that and stuff, and it was great. And here at the very end of this year, we get the other big reveal that people have been waiting for forever for. So it's like big, important, huge things happened for the story of the series. So, like, big things happened. The quality was overall great. I will say, if I have only one complaint, there was a span of a few chapters there where there's a fight that happens, and the fight happens with a character that we hadn't been introduced to before then. So a lot of, like, while that fight was going on, I was like, I don't actually really care about this. And again, a lot of my timeline was also like, oh yeah, don't really care about what's going on right now. So there were a few weeks that it's like I wasn't really gripped by that. But just, again, overall, it's one of the biggest years for the series, at least in the manga. I feel like it's hard to beat whatever year it was that that season 3 of the anime came out, because season 3 of the anime was excellent, plus the manga was going full speed. Like, it was pre-Panny D, so like everybody was like really loving the series there, and I feel like the anime's kind of fallen off since then quite a bit. Again, not to talk too much about that since it's unrelated, but yeah, anime meh, but great year for the manga. So, number one, the best manga for me in all of 2021 was "'Tis Time for Torture Princess." Probably a bit of a dark horse. A bunch of you probably haven't even heard of it, but it's probably not a huge surprise for those of you that watch my Jump Week videos. I love "'Tis Time for Torture Princess." I absolutely think it's the funnest thing to read on a weekly basis. And to really quick talk about some other series actually before jumping into talking about this, I always say that my favorite manga is Beastars, and if you marathon it, you might not quite get why it was my favorite manga, because I feel like marathoning it, there are certain things that probably aren't as cohesive as, say, One Piece. I feel like One Piece and Beastars have sort of inverse sort of philosophies, really, whereas One Piece overall, when you marathon through it, everything connects together so perfectly. There's so much depth and so much like really structurally planned out content in One Piece, but on the week to week, we do end up with a lot of chapters that aren't the best, or we end up with chapters where it's like, okay, this chapter is just leading us from where we were last time to where we're going to be next time. It was very much just a transitional chapter where the philosophy of Beastars was different. The mangaka Itagaki Paru had said somewhat early on, when like in an interview talking about Beastars, that Beastars is a weekly series. So while they had what they wanted the last page of the series to be, other than that, they were just sort of riding the waves and wanted to provide something good on the week to week. And that's why if you marathon through Beastars, it's not going to be as completely cohesive as One Piece, but what you miss out on just marathoning is that on a week to week basis, the chapters were just good every single week. So I knew if we were just getting a transitional or a meh chapter of Hero Academia or One Piece or anything else that I read, we were going to be getting a great chapter of Beastars every week. Just because that's how it was. Every week had its own great story, even if it was part of a greater story. And "'Tis Time for Torture Princess," since the end of Beastars, has kind of taken up that mantle for me as something that is going to give me a really great chapter every single week. The overall story might not be the most cohesive. It's basically a gag comedy manga, but it still tells a good story. It has some sort of jokes and plot lines that weave from chapter to chapter over a really long period of time. In fact, there's one joke that's basically been building for the entire year that we were kind of cliffhung on at the end of the year, so I'm excited to read the first chapter of 2022 because we're gonna sort of get payoff on what's been building for like an entire year. So I love that aspect of things. The characters are just incredible. It's just so fun to read. I will say the mangaka Robinson Haruhara has had tons of other manga, notably Senyu. The art is by Hirake, who's done Shinmai Nitaism for Jump Plus and Ao no Reto for Jump Giga. So yeah, they've done some other things for Jump. But it's really fun. The characters are absolutely incredible. That's what I would say read most for. And every single thing that happens is just so cute and so funny. I really love the world. The comedic storytelling is wonderfully long-term, which is really nice too. The art, to me personally, is amazing. I absolutely love the style. I love the character design work, which is really, really big for me. If something has really good character designs, that's something that's really, really going to draw me in. It just happens to be an art style that hits exactly like the kind of art style that I really, really love. And you can see that from some of the art I'm going to put up here to the side. I think I couldn't decide whether I'm gonna put the volume 6 or 7 cover because both are so cute, so I'll probably end up doing both somehow. But But you got like Momo-chan and Lulune are adorable, and then of course Princess and Torture have to have the main characters up there. So yeah, it's the best. It's funny, it's cute, it's kind of a fantasy slice of life comedy. But yeah, best manga in 2021 just because it was something where I knew that some chapters of Hero Academia were going to be meh. I wasn't going to like every single chapter. Some were just going to be transitional. Same goes for One Piece. Not every chapter was incredible. A lot were transitional. There were even some chapters of One Piece that weren't great. And I'm just mentioning those because they are such popular manga that I feel like a lot of you watching this can probably use as a baseline to judge other things, even if they aren't of the same genre. But this is something where every week there was never a chapter that I was like, well, that was boring. Never a chapter where I was like, oh, that wasn't good. No, every single week was a fun time. And I think that reading this for the Jump Week videos, which again, I am months behind on, I need to marathon post them, but reading in a way that I get to share with other people too, probably also elevates my opinion of it. So again, taking that into consideration, but there's plenty going on. Like I said, there's 120 some chapters. If any of you want to catch up to it, it is my favorite thing in Jump from 2021. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. So then, finishing things off here, thank you so much for sticking through that with me. I will not lie to you, I had a really tough time recording this, so like I had to do multiple takes like 1,000 times, which is not the usual for me. Usually I just kind of chill, go through my videos, just talk with you all. So it's weird for me to be needing to like go through multiple takes just because I jumble my words like crazy, but I don't know. I guess I just had sort of a rough past month or so, and I haven't really recorded too much lately, and it's I don't know. I just had a rough time getting through this one. I powered through it though. It's probably going to end up being a total mess, so I'm sorry for that, but hey, I was like, either I can be like, I'm going to wait and not record it until I feel better and feel better about it, and you're gonna, who knows when you'll get this video, or I can power through it, give you something, and just see what we end up with. So yeah, I had a rough time with this one. I really did, and I don't know why completely. Other than, like I said, it hasn't been a great month for me. But either way, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you check out like basically all of these series. Like I said, there are some I'm not as huge a fan of. One I don't really like, but even then you might like it. Again, this is just my opinion, and I would love if other people liked all of these. That'd be great. I only want the best for everybody. But yeah, it's been fun reading everything for Jump Week, especially when I was caught up with everything. Falling behind has been rough, but like I said, I've kept recording things. I just really need the time to post them all. So hopefully over the course of the next month or so, maybe I'll be able to just marathon through posting things until I'm totally caught back up. So be looking forward to those if you're sticking around, but either way, thank you so much for watching. Like if you did like the video, comment down there too. Tell me what you thought of this video, my sort of thoughts on all these series. What are your thoughts on all of them? How would you rank all of them? Of course, there are probably those of you that have read a bunch of series I haven't. Like I said, I'm caught up to what, like 11 out of 20 and 6 out of 12 for Jump and Jump Plus. Hopefully over the course of this year, maybe I can catch up to the 9 and the 6 that I haven't read, or that I have read but I'm kind of behind on. Hopefully I can catch up to those. But either way, that's it. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, it's free and open for anyone. Just ask and I can give you a link. And if you would like to help support the channel on Patreon, it is patreon.com/HakuOfTheTubes, or a link will be in the description. Either way, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.